Yes.
Welcome. We're about to start. Okay, we're ready to go. Welcome. Everybody made it through the various traffic centers and we're all presently accounted for now. So welcome to this first bi-state meeting of the Washington and Oregon Transportation Commissions to start working on tolling on the I-5 bridge. I'm Commissioner Debbie Young. I'm serving as chair of the Washington Commission today. And I just have to say, we've been a long time getting here. And we've had a few false starts along the way, so it's really gratifying to be this far and to be actually working on the tolling scenarios to get the bridge built that we've needed for so long. We have just an overview of our items today on the agenda. We're going to start by just discussing and adopting some simple operating procedures for this bi-state group. And we're going to require, because of the way we operate, a motion from each state in order to do that. We're going to hear an update on the bridge replacement project and what's been going on with that. We're going to get an update on consultation that's been occurring with the federally recognized tribes. Then we're going to have a briefing on what the subcommittees have been working on already, tolling scenarios that they're recommending to us to advance for stage 3. And we're going to be taking action on that. And then we're going to finish with a schedule of the project going forward and what we can look forward to after that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chair Brown to make any opening remarks and introduce your members.
Thank you, Chair Young. So good morning. First off, I wanted to thank everyone for making the effort to come together. As the chair said, it's been a process for a long period of time and we never thought we'd get here, but we're finally here. And I wanted to actually thank the committee members that worked on the tolling piece of this. Thank you so much. I know that it wasn't easy and that the task was very, very difficult in some ways because we are a little bit different in the way our states look, but overall you worked out a process and thank you so much for that. And this time I'm going to introduce my vice chair. This Vice Chair Beyer is from the Eugene Springfield area. We have Commissioner Baker, who is from I almost said Las Vegas. I don't know where
Is that my image?
Lake Oswego, thank you. I don't know. I guess I want to be in Vegas. And then Commissioner Chapman, who's from the Portland metro area. We have one other commissioner that has only been on the commission for 7 days. I don't believe he's on here. But he had a conflict, so he'll be joining us next time we are together. So, thank you.
And the Washington State members that we have, I think we could just go around the room, starting
Sure.
with Commissioner Restucci.
Commissioner Jim Restucci from Yakima County, serving as vice chair.
Roy Jennings from Clark County, and I want to welcome everybody south of the great state of Washington here today.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kelly Pugai, Commissioner from Spokane County.
Good morning, I'm Shiv Patra, Commissioner from King County.
Morning, Nicole Grant is she and her pronouns, and I'm based in King County.
And J.C. Baldwin, and I'm based in Shoreline County.
Okay, and just a reminder that this meeting today is being streamed live on TV Washington and on YouTube, and it's being recorded. So you have ample time to view this both virtually now and in the future. And if you are joining us virtually from your car, we encourage you to pull over and park while you do so. And with that, we're going to, oh, and also we're going to be taking public comment today at approximately 10:30, give or take. And if you want to sign up for public comment, you should do that by, if you're virtual, clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and entering your name. And if you're in person, we have a sign-up sheet somewhere in the room. I think it's over there by the meeting materials, by the door. So if you're here in person and you'd like to make public comment, please put your name on that sheet, and we will get to that at about 10:30. And before that, then we are going to discuss the operating procedures. And Rima and Travis are gonna lead us through that. So you wanna introduce yourselves and get us started?
So good morning, I'm Rima Griffin, I'm the Executive Director of the Washington State Transportation Commission.
And I am Travis Brower, I'm ODOT's Assistant Director for Revenue and Finance.
So I'll just do a quick introduction and I'll let Travis jump a little bit more into the details of the procedures. Just to give you a little bit of context and background, we felt this was an important thing to have in place for transparency and for the public to understand how two separate bodies from two separate states will work together. You are not a combined by-state commission as a third entity, if you will. It's the Washington Commission and the Oregon Commission. So it's gonna be a little bit unique in how we operate or think about how you all will vote and interact. And so these procedures are really short, that are there to reflect how you will chair and operate going forward. Stressing that there will be separate votes taken to ensure that both states are fully accountable by their full commissions on all votes where regulatory adoptions are taken. So with that, I'll let Travis quickly walk through the provisions.
Great, thank you, Rima. As you can see, this is a very short document, about half a page. I'll give you the 30-second version. There's really two components to this. The one is the leadership. And so we have proposed that have a single chair for each meeting, just to make it a little less awkward, and that rotate back and forth between the two chairs. We do anticipate that we will be seeing you a number of times over the course of this process, meeting together. And so we will then be rotating back and forth. In terms of the operating procedures, very simple. We'll have a single call to order as we did today. But when taking a vote on an action, the commission chair for each state will call for a vote of their respective members, because you are two separate commissions acting jointly together, meeting jointly together, but each has to take that individual action. We wanted to make it very clear that for toll rates to actually become effective, they will require a majority vote within each state's commission. So it's not an amalgamation of the two states, a majority of all present voting. It is a majority of each state. And then, of course, we are going to follow the public meeting requirements of each state, and we'll take public comment. So that is the proposed operating procedures, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Travis or Rima? Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the I-5 Bridge Joint Transportation Commission operating procedures from Washington State.
And we also need a motion from the Oregon Transportation Commission.
I would move to approve the I-5 Bridge Joint Transportation Commission operating procedures for the Oregon.
Excellent. And we discussed earlier that we probably don't need a roll call vote on this one, so we'll just say all in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay? Very good. We've jointly adopted the operating procedures. And that brings us to public comment about 20 minutes early. So do we have anyone signed up for public comment? We do. So we're gonna ask that public comment be kept to 3 minutes. So if you plan something longer than that, now would be the time to revise your comments. We welcome anything additional that you have to say in writing. With that, we'll start with in-person public comment and then we'll move to virtual public comment. So you want to call the first name?
Just so we have a list, we have 2 in-person listed and currently one online. So
Okay.
I'll start with in-person. First on the list is Tom Gustafson.
I do not intend to speak, made my time, but all ears.
Okay.
And then Sharon Nassif. Did I get that wrong?
Do you want to come up and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from? And the vice chair will give you a heads up when you have 30 seconds left of your 3 minutes. And we'll sit right there. That'd be great. We can all see you.
Okay. Thank you. People in the room too. Hello, thank you for having this meeting here today and thanks for traveling all the way up here. I actually would like it if you came a couple times a year for bi-state, might as well be bi-state meetings. And I'd love it if it was at 9. For the record, I'm Sharon Nassif. I am here from the North Portland area and have done a lot of lobbying as a citizen in Olympia and here in Oregon, having to do with the I-5 crossing and our transportation issues and how that affects our economy here. So what I would like to say today is to thank the Oregon Transportation Commission. I recently sent them a FOIA having to do with the purpose and needs, the evaluation and project definition of the Columbia River Crossing project. And when it was formally adopted by either the regional transportation councils, which are our signatory agencies, or the formal adoption by the MPOs, metropolitan planning organizations. Because at the time, Betty Sue Morris said that they would not even bring it up because it didn't include the citizens and that it had not been formally adopted. And they were unable to find records of any formal adoption on the purpose and need, the evaluation or definition for the Columbia River Crossing by any of the signatory agencies or metropolitan organizations. They also looked up for the current bridge project and were unable to find hearings, which are formal hearings, just like we did announcements and notices out on this hearing, for that either, after 2 months of searching. And what they did say was a steering committee gave a recommendation to go forward with what they had already had from the Columbia River Crossing. As you may or may not know, that the senator of my district, which is where this is, at the time of the bridge project replacement, wanted to set forth a purpose and need. The old one was 20 years old. Staff refused to do any changes because they said it would change the project too much. Purpose and need is what is supposed to lead the project, not the other way around. And it was not formally adopted. I'm asking you to ask the state Washington Attorney General's office to look at the purpose and need and of both projects and see if you actually have a valid process in either of them. He did this the first time around when we asked him for the original sponsors councils meetings. They met for 18 months and he determined, Tim Ford, that the attorney, that all of the meetings had voided state and federal open meeting laws and that none of the sponsors council meetings could be used. And that is why everything is called staff recommendation. And they never went back And then when they went forward, the federal highway had taken away the purpose and need statement, which was not adopted, and brought it back fixed with exactly the same language to our area and went forward. So I'm asking that you look into that. Secondly, the
We're
paper I
at 3
gave,
minutes now.
oh, thank you. Yeah, there's no clock or.
We can give you another, I guess you didn't see the heads, we can give you another 30 seconds or so if you can.
Yeah.
Okay, what I gave you is 205, says that the bridges have 60 years of life, are worth $1 billion, and are excellent to be doing other things in our region. That is the last inspection. They were paid to do an inspection and a seismic recommendations from a bridge company that actually does seismic, and neither of those reports have come out yet. And it's been years and years since that was recommended, which was 2007 and 2011. And last I know today was tolls. I would like to see a projection of once we put tolls on the main line of the I-5 freeway. If in 5 years, there will be how many tolls on I-5 between Canada and Mexico? Because it will be turning over the designation to a interstate freeway and no longer, interstate and no longer a freeway. I have been told that there will be as many as 12 tolls between Canada and Mexico within less than 20 years of us changing the designation. And I don't think any of the citizens, because nobody's here, actually, everybody thinks the governor ended tolling. When I tell them, they think I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyways, thank you very much, and thank you for letting me speak over. Good day.
Thank you.
And I have another meeting, so no, not to be rude, I'm gonna be leaving.
Okay, we have your written material, thank you. No one else in the room wants to provide in-person comment. We'll move to virtual, and if you haven't done so yet, now is your opportunity to click on the Q&A button and enter your name. And we do, I think, in the case of virtual comment, we have a time clock that will run on the screen. But since we offered an additional 30 seconds here, I think we can offer additional 30 seconds to those commenting for virtually also. So Carl, who do we have signed up first?
So we do have 2 people now signed up. The first is Deborah Calls.
Okay, Deborah, we'll give you the ability to unmute and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from as soon as we can hear you.
There, are we on?
We can see you.
And hear me?
We don't hear you yet.
This is weird. Don't hear me yet.
Might be muted.
No? Let me see here.
I can hear Deborah virtually.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you on the phone here.
Okay. The panel can't hear me?
That may be the case.
Okay, how do we do these virtually?
I don't know.
This may be something in our room.
I'm still working on.
Hello?
Being able to hear you.
My microphone is not muted. Hello?
Now you see my person.
Can you guys hear me?
It is.
Hello? Can you hear me?
So, have you clicked your microphone?
I think
They can
I
hear
think it's
her.
our room problem, so
Yeah.
let me.
Oh,
sorry.
so-
They can hear her.
Hello?
Thank you. So it's a problem in here. We're working on it.
She can hear us.
Have her shake her head.
And you're gonna log off?
Where
She was,
No,
oh,
she
you're
was-
waving at us. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not waving goodbye.
She's waving hello now.
All right, we're working on it.
You guys should have tested this. Hello? You guys should have tested this. Hello?
There you are.
We heard
Well,
You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. So
The proverbial, can you hear me now? My name's, okay, my name's Deborah Kells. I've been living in Vancouver since 1971. I'm disabled widow retiree. At this point, I worked in Portland for approximately 30 years. I now have to get specialty care at OHSU. I'm very concerned about having to pay tolls to go over to get my medical care based on the fact that specialties that are not offered in Vancouver. But additionally to that, I'm very concerned about tolling because of the congestion that it can create at all junctions leading down to the bridge, including Highway 14. According to the news in 2023 of April, Southwest Washington lawmakers opposed the tolling of the bridge for a variety of reasons. And among those is that at that time, and I imagine it's greater now, is that Clark County residents already paid $2.2 billion in Oregon state income taxes, and that this is another form of taxation. So it's layering on another form that is going to burden the already amount of money people pay to live and work in Oregon, or I mean to just work in Oregon. Also that there will be choke points on Highway 14 and I-5 where there will be tolling where people aren't necessarily going to cross the bridge. And so residents don't have too many choices. There are no other options to cross the bridge other than 205 and I-5. And so that will create, especially people who come down I-5 to go work downtown Vancouver, will end up going on residential streets that they will, again, they will be redirected. There's going to be additional concentration of traffic in these neighborhoods that will have to be dealt with as well. And then the additional item is one would direct the Washington Tolling Authority to require toll rates that specifically cover the Interstate 5 Columbia River Bridge without subsidizing the Oregon tolling facilities, and that money be not set at a rate that exceeds the highest toll rate already allowed in the rest of the tolling facilities in Washington. And then additionally, that we've got to be sure that there's sufficient federal funding in place along with state and local funds available to complete the replacement project. My fear at my age, I'm almost 70, is that, hello? What was the music?
Sorry.
That was the 3 minutes.
That was the 3-minute clock, but you have another 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Music. And okay. So it's going to require, it's going to land residents who are already having a hard time financially paying a higher proportion of the costs when they are already paying an unfair tax to Oregon. So you're having triple taxation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments and for being patient with our audience.
Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you, but I think we lost the room.
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Edgar. I believe we lost the room.
Okay.
I presume they'll be back shortly.
Okay. It appears in my screen at the bottom, it looks like that there is two sessions of Zoom now in play, and that may be part of the problem.
Oh, okay. I'm not seeing two sessions. I see.
I don't know. All I know is that they flicked it off.
Yeah, they might have lost Wi-Fi down there or something. I'm not sure. I just texted them to let them know we lost them and that you would like to comment.
Maybe we should also text them that they could ask them if they want us to come back in, shut it down and come back in.
They can hear and see us apparently, but we can't see them. Can you see them, Liz?
I cannot see them.
We definitely can't hear them either.
So I now see the conference room on the list of attendees, not participants. But they just moved up. Now they're in the right way.
Oh,
We hear you now.
I can see a conference room now.
Excellent. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Mr. Edgar, please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from and go ahead with your comments.
Thank you. My name is Paul Edgar, and I've been actively involved into transportation issues going back to the Trade and Transportation Partnership Studies in Vancouver. I lived in Hazeldale and commuted to my office in Northwest Portland for 14 years, and now retired. I'm living in Oregon City. My issue is of many issues, but one of the more critical issues is that the inclusion of TriMet's light rail transit system onto the bridge effectively adds $3 billion to the total fully encumbered cost of the bridge. That amount of money, some of it is going to be paid by WashDOT, some by ODOT, but the biggest problem is of it, a significant amount of it will have to be paid through the tolls. But within that, Max LRT, TriMet's transit system currently is in real trouble because it's not generating the ridership with virtual office and changing of patterns of people who have previously commuted, and the moving where no longer do we find corporate America living or operating businesses or offices in downtown Portland. Now, the ability to create sustainable ridership on that light rail, proposed light rail, is just not there. Origination and destination studies show, which were required within this IBR planning, that people cannot get from Vancouver to their place of where they need to go with light rail. Therefore, if they can't get to it, they have to have a lot of extra transfers. But the big thing is that if you try to create an alternative, it can take 3 or 4 times the amount of time that it will take, and that just will prevent people. Also, C-Trans ridership is there, and it's having trouble justifying it. And when you split it, now you're going to make both entities not economically viable. So the solution, truly the solution, is to eliminate Max LRT out of this IBR planning. It reduces the contingencies of higher toll rates than what the people can justify, and it eliminates the inability of Washington riders, who are people, they don't want to pick up the toll rates. They don't want to pick up the cost of operating the toll in Park County. And without a vote of the people to approve,
You have about 30 seconds more.
without a vote of the people to approve having subsidizing light rail and the operating cost in Washington, you're barking up a wrong tree. It should just be eliminated from the proposal, and that should be done immediately. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And thank you for your patience again with our IT. Anyone else signed up?
Yes, we have 2 more. Next up is Dean Sir.
Okay. Dean, we're gonna try and give you the ability to unmute. And hopefully we'll be getting better at it as we.
All right, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes, thank you to all of you who went before me to get all the bugs out. Good morning. My name is Dean Sir. I live in West Linn, Oregon, on the southeast side of Portland. I am the author of IP4, which was an initiative for the 2024 election called Vote Before Tolls. Very grassroots, very successful, but we didn't get enough signatures to get on the ballot. But we learned a lot. So we refiled for the 26 election. It's called IP31. It's active and moving forward. This Vote Before Tolls initiative is a constitutional amendment in Oregon, and it is retroactive. So it does cover all the tolls that you all are talking about here. And it covers highways as well as bridges in Oregon. In short, since it requires a regional vote before tolls, which would be the entire Portland metro area for a toll on the interstate bridge, it's going to force transparency and accountability between the planners, certainly between ODOT and the general public. Accountability was raised and trust was raised as a major theme in the 13+ stop Oregon Legislative Transportation Committee and ODOT tour they just completed. They went across the state over the last 3 or 4 months. Equity, being fair and efficiently collected. The overheads we understand on tolling are just, they're just terrible. Our gas tax overhead is less than 0.5%. So that's the benchmark that tolling needs to look at. Tolling, you're looking at billions and billions, probably $4 or $5 billion by the time all of the final costs are put together for this bridge. That's a lot of money. Just a couple of observations and I'll close. Is this bridge being designed for a 50 or 100-year lifespan, like the current, at least the current original span is, built on wooden pilings? We would hope that it would last equally as long. And my question is, the current capacity of that bridge, it basically has 2.5 lanes. It's 3 lanes wide, but those lanes are very narrow, and the feeders in and out are challenging. But the quote upgrade of this bridge certainly is seismic improvements, but only gets us to 3 lanes of normal widths plus an auxiliary lane. Does that cover 50 to 100 years of regional growth? Mr. Edgar suggested light rail is not appropriate today, but would it make sense maybe just to have the extra concrete in place to support light rail if in 25 or 50 years, the design is there so you could add light rail at some future point? That would be a couple of pilings in the middle of the river. You don't have to do this stuff on land. The budget was also discussed during this the Oregon Transportation Committee meeting. Cost of materials since 2019, asphalt has risen 38% since 2019, steel 79%. Those are budget busting numbers. But guess what? The budget for this project, the IBR, in 2020 was about 4.8 billion. Last December 23, was 6.5 billion. And I'm hearing now rumblings with the new cost estimates that what we're going to hear next year in 2025 is about 9 billion. That's a doubling of costs, and cost of materials not going up that high. So other stuff is blowing up in here. And again, if and when we pass this vote before tolls initiative, we're going to have to speak. You're going to have to speak about all of that to build the trust and transparency. But we want to be at the table. We want to talk. We think that public comments is also, but this is awesome, but this is counted as a community contact, and we really want to be at the table discussing, working with you collectively.
Thank you.
That are accepted. Thank you.
Yes, we have one additional public comment, and that'd be from Martha Eisenson.
Okay. Martha Isaacson, you have the floor.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you so much for your time. I'll keep this brief. Carl was just able to confirm that the commissions did receive a letter from Umatilla Tribe in regards to a possible preempted tolling issue. And so I will just thank you all for your time, and I hope that you will give that serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else signed up? This is your last chance. If you want to comment virtually. Person?
That was all we had signed up.
Okay.
No,
All right. In that case, then we'll close public comment. And we'll move to our next agenda item, which is to get an update on the IBR program and preparations for tolling. So take it away. Frank, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah.
I guess we all know you, but.
Well, thank you, Chair Young, Chair Brown, members of the commission. My name's Frank Green. I'm the Assistant Program Administrator here on the IBR program. Even with the bugs we've had to work out, I'd like to welcome you to our program office. This is where we've been doing a lot of work for the program. So yeah, I'll give a quick update on a few slides on what's going on in the program. Then I know Ed Berry will come in and give an update on some of the tolling work that's going on. And Travis will also give an ODOT update. So you can go to the next slide, please. We just wanted to kind of start this presentation and discussion with a reminder of where this program's been. And what we're currently looking at. So wanted to start with the kind of the initiation of this Interstate Bridge Replacement Program, the program that the program and team that we're really working right now. So in 2019, the governors from both states came together and said, this program needs to be discussed. We need to move this bridge replacement forward. And so they directed both DOTs to kind of come together, work together, develop a memorandum of understanding to move this program forward. And with that, we've also, both states created a bi-state legislative committee to help provide oversight for the program. Next slide, please. And one of the key pieces of, you know, that kind of initiation effort is the recognition of work that's been done by, you know, the local governments, the state governments, and everyone here regionally for the program in the past. So that begins back in the 90s with the Trade and Transportation Partnership work that identified some alternatives, the Columbia River Crossing that did get to a record of decision in 2011. But, you know, unfortunately with things that happened, the program was suspended in 2014. And so there's about a 5-year period where, you know, replacing this bridge wasn't necessarily being moved forward. But as we initiated this and got moving forward, we worked with our federal partners, Federal Highway and Federal Transit, to identify that even with that federal record of decision in 2011, we knew that enough has changed that, you know, with the region, with the area, that a supplemental EIS was needed. And that's kind of the primary work we've been focusing on since we reinitiated this program. So next slide. The regional partners, as I mentioned, there's a partnership here locally of, you know, we have 2 states, so the 2 DOTs, we have transit agencies on both sides of the river with TriMet and CTran, the metropolitan planning organizations, Metro and Southwest Regional Transportation Council. We have 2 cities, Vancouver and Portland, as well as 2 ports in very close proximity to the program with Port of Vancouver and Port of Portland. That kind of makes up our executive steering group that really looked to a lot of what the work previously had been done was you know, that problem that was identified, that identified the purpose and need, the previous alternatives that had been evaluated, how do they still fit within those regional needs and state needs? And what was identified is what we call the modified locally preferred alternative. You see the graphic here on the screen that really demonstrates key pieces of that modified locally preferred alternative are replacing the bridge with a new seismically resilient facility. It does include making improvements and investments to 7 interchanges within the very close proximity to the bridge, which will help improve safety, which is a key piece of the purpose and need. It'll help the operations of the freeway, which obviously will also benefit freight, being that the 2 ports connect within this 5-mile stretch. But also extending TriMet's light rail to approximately 2 miles into Vancouver. You see that, you know, really that purpose and need and the problem that had been previously identified, you know, in those 5 years that the program was suspended, and really the 10 years since the record of decision was achieved during CRC, you know, haven't really been addressed in this 5-mile corridor. And I guess now it's 13 years. We've been working on this program for a little bit of time. But, you know, the program was able to work with those partners and really hit a major milestone about 11 days ago. So if you can go to the next slide. We were able to publish our draft supplemental environmental impact statement. It really does, you know, analyze and measure the environmental impacts and benefits that this program will have with the proposed modified locally preferred alternative. You know, we're 11 days into the 60-day comment period, and so we're really trying to get out there and ask the public, the communities, anyone who's listening to provide comments to us to that EIS, draft SEIS. As you can see, the full document is available on our website. You know, it's a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of analysis. There's also a number of ways to submit comments. We're really trying to get out there and make sure that you know, voices can be heard on this draft supplemental EIS. So you can submit a comment in writing, you can email us, you can call our phone number. We're gonna have a series of public hearings and open houses where people can come and learn about the EIS and also give their testimony or actually have their comments recorded. So we really want to make sure that if people want to know what this program is and have their voice heard, this is a key opportunity. As I mentioned, we have a series of upcoming public hearings that we'll be doing and a lot of information available on our website about how to make a comment, where you can make a comment, and where we'll be accepting those comments. So next slide. So, you know, after this public comment period, which wraps up on November 18th, the program is going to move forward, you know, looking at all those comments. We will sort through them. We'll combine with like comments. During the supplemental final stage, we will need to respond to all comments that we've received. So that's where I'm saying if someone wants to provide a comment, you know, this is the time to really get that comment to our EIS. You know, those public comments will be used by that regional partnership to to really look at the programs moving forward, maybe refine some of the designs, refine some of the work that's gonna go on, so that ultimately we can look to publish that supplemental final environmental impact statement, roughly next summer, with the goal of getting to a federal record of decision late next year. Once we get to that federal record of decision, that's when you can really start moving forward into constructing elements of the program. So there's been a lot of work to get to this supplemental draft EIS, but there's still, a lot of work to move forward and a lot of opportunities for that community and public engagement to make sure their voices are heard on this program. So with that, I guess I can pause for a minute and see if there's any questions.
No questions for Frank?
I believe now I turn it over to Ed, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Thank you, Frank. Good morning, Chair Young, Chair Brown, rest of the commission. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, I'm just going to give you a quick update on where we are in the toll division, in Washington State Toll Division, that is, to begin tolling for this facility. We have had lots of work going on this past summer in preparing and working with the IBR program to implement tolls on this project. We had a really great site visit on August 29th, where a lot of our toll division engineering staff came down to the bridge and took a tour. We also had with us our roadside toll vendor, Cops USA. We had their engineering staff with us. We had a really great tour walking around, contemplating where possible pre-completion toll points might be, what some of the challenges and opportunities might be. So that was very helpful in getting that work going for the roadside toll vendor. Not only did we tour the bridge, but we had a great briefing by the IBR toll program there in the offices, and we also had a meeting and tour at the Southwest Region WashDOT headquarters building in their traffic management center. We looked at what their configurations were for cameras and fiber optics, on how we might incorporate our toll systems within that, our toll signing, how we might be able to mirror what's done up in the Seattle area down in this area, what possibilities there are, what differences there might be. We also had a really good conversation and look at their IT infrastructure, their IT center, their IT room, to see what the possibilities were for the toll division and our vendors, servers and IT equipment and their fiber, on how those might be hooked up and connected for tolling this facility. So overall, it was a very good conversation and a really good opportunity for all of us to get together and get our vendor going and thinking about what might be possible for tolling this facility. Next slide. We also have stood up and we have our overall consultant team going now to manage this project for us within the toll division and WashDOT. They're working on their program management plan, the schedule and cost estimate for implementing tolling on this facility, both pre-completion and on the new bridge. So that work is ongoing as well. Within those costs and schedules will be incorporated all of the elements to implement tolling, and that is our back office system updates, customer service assumptions, the traffic and revenue work that I'll mention in a minute, and the roadside toll systems, to name a couple of the big ones. So it's a complicated process that requires a lot of intentional decision making that we're doing right now, and of course close collaboration with ODOT, WashDOT, Toll Division, and the program. So I think we're making good progress there. As I said, the roadside toll system work with COPS is underway. They're going to include design and development documentation to implement tolling, so that work is going on. And also, of course, the traffic and revenue work that the toll division manages that you're going to hear about in a little while. This has been ongoing and it's something we're definitely focusing on to support your work here and in the bi-state subcommittees as well. So we're making good progress. There's lots of work going on and a lot of collaboration going on with all of the entities and of course yourselves in the bi-state toll commission. So that is my update.
I will go next. I'm Travis Brower again, Assistant Director for Revenue Finance at ODOT. In many ways now that ODOT has turned over administration of tolls to the WashDOT Toll Division, we are the junior partner, and yet, as Ed noted, we are collaborating very closely with our neighbors to the north and working very closely with them on moving forward tolling. It will require both states to take action. Next slide, please. We, early in the year, were in the process of putting forward toll rules that would have set forth all of the administrative requirements of a comprehensive toll program, everything from the rate setting process, toll designation, toll facility designation, all the way through exemptions and discounts and account management. That was put on hold, and when the governor provided her direction to pause tolling. We are now bringing that forward. We've had multiple discussions with the Oregon Transportation Commission. We are moving forward with a limited toll rules update that is focused on just the areas of our administrative code that are needed in order to collaborate between Oregon and Washington, between the transportation commissions on designating the I-5 bridge as a toll facility and moving forward on tolling. That is open for public comment right now. Closes at the end of this week. And then we will be bringing those draft rules to the OTC in December. That will then set up the application to designate the interstate bridge as a tollway. In Washington, that is a responsibility that is taken by the legislature. In Oregon statute, that's that in the Transportation Commission and the department. So we will be bringing, once those rules are in place, bringing you a proposal to designate the interstate bridge as a toll facility. And that will be in January of 2025. And at that point, we will essentially have caught up with where Washington has been for some time and be able to move forward jointly with the two states working together. With that, we have completed this section. Be happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions or comments about the state of the program? Congratulations on getting that SCIS out. A big lift.
Thank you. A lot of work from our, a lot of long nights, weekends from our environmental team, doing that work to get that out. So
have you had a lot of comments come in yet? First 10 days?
I think we're expecting a lot of the comments will come when we have some of those public hearings, and they usually come near the end of the comment period, but I think we've had at least a couple hundred.
Just in the first weekend, it was 140, but I don't have a count.
Yeah, so.
Lots of public interest.
Yes.
Okay, well, we're still well ahead of schedule, so I think we'll delay our break, which was supposed to come next in the agenda, because I think we have everyone in the room for the next presentation. So I think we'll move ahead with the update on tribal engagement activities. Cassie's here. Great.
Good morning. Cassie Rippiani, Tribal Liaison for the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. Can we go to the next slide? So ODOT and WashDOT are jointly presenting as the IBR program, right? We have in 2020, between 2020 and 2022, invited 38 tribes with an interest in this area to consult on the IBR program. Of those 38 tribes invited, 10 have initiated consultation and are participating tribes on the NEPA process. 4 of those tribes are in Oregon, 5 of those tribes are in Washington, and one is based out of Idaho. We have a variety of engagement processes for the tribes. We have intertribal meetings on a variety of topics. We have one-on-one consultation with tribes that are interested. Some of those are monthly. Some of those are just kind of on an as-needed program milestone basis. We also go to a variety of state and tribal kind of conferences and summits to provide program updates throughout the process. Next slide. So each of the tribes is its own sovereign nation, has its own sovereign interests, and cannot speak for another. It's imperative that as through the process, we are going and we are hearing from each of the tribes and understanding those comments from that individual and as how it applies. Some tribes have treaties which have preemptions which may apply, others do not, which have other concerns and interests. We, in the vein of the process of how we've been interacting with the tribes similarly, for IBR, we are proposing or putting forward intertribal meetings, really kind of on an ad hoc basis for the tribes to provide updates at key milestones or where appropriate information is to share. We held that first meeting with intertribal group for tolling on July 30th. And we'll just continue to provide those. And we've, I think our next slide will talk about some of the actual specific engagement opportunities. So I think I'm going to open it up to that next.
I will take this slide. Again, Travis Browder, Assistant Director of ODOT. So we have had a number of engagements to date with tribal government representatives, and each of them I think have been very good discussions, and I appreciate the willingness of the subcommittee members to participate in many of those. As Cassie noted, we did participate in an intertribal meeting, a coordination conversation with a variety of the tribes that are being engaged by the project in July. We opened up and specifically sent out a request for consultation with a number of tribal governments across the region, and 2 tribal governments requested consultation. That was the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, which we undertook in August. As Ms. Eisenson noted during public comment, you have a letter from the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation in your packet that explains the position of the tribes. In this case, the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation references their treaty of 1855, which they believe provides a rationale for an exemption from paying tolls on public roads. That is a consistent theme we heard in the 2 conversations that we had with them. We were in front of their Fish and Wildlife Commission, as well as made a trip out to Pendleton to speak to their tribal council in August, and Commissioner Chapman was part of that conversation. We also had a meeting, consultation meeting with the the Cowlitz Indian tribe in August, and Commissioner Wasucci was part of that conversation and had a good conversation with them as well. They also have made a similar request for a exemption from paying tolls. So we are hearing that fairly consistent theme across at least the 2 consultation meetings that we have had to date. And I'll turn it to Ms. Griffith if she has any additional comments she wanted to make about the engagement with the Cowlitz.
Yeah, Travis, I think that covers it really well. I think we, just to be clear, we have attended the engagements with the Oregon tribe as well as with the Watch Tribe, with the Matillas and with the Cowlitz. And thank you, Commissioner Wasucci, for coming all the way over to sit with us when we met with the Cowlitz. I think their request of us was quite specific in terms of seeking an exemption, not just for their members, but for their businesses as well. So that's something to consider in the calculation. I think we can jump to the next slide real quick. I'll just cover this last point on it. Oh, we dropped off again. Oh, okay. On the next slide, basically, the plans going forward are to continue these conversations. These engagements are an ongoing discussion. And we will be working actively, I think, with the IBR intertribal meetings, utilizing that existing structure and outreach that's been ongoing and is quite efficient at reaching all the tribes in Washington and Oregon that have an interest. And lastly, I think we would, at least from the staff level, recommend that the subcommittee conduct a level of analysis around a potential for providing toll exemptions and discounts in some form as part of that level 3 analysis that we'll advance. And maybe it's more of a sensitivity analysis, but we do think it needs to be looked at, I think, from the Washington state perspective. Currently, we only offer, I won't even say it's an exemption, it's a preemption to the 2 tribes, the Nez Perce and the Yakima, that have treaty rights that ensure free passage and travel. So our commission did not act on an exemption. It was simply granted, in the Washington State DOT administers that free travel directly with the tribe. So for Washington State, we will be also taking as a parallel route, looking at some data and trying to get a handle on a broader discussion, which we heard from the Cowlitz as well, around a tribal exemption for all tribes, similar to, I believe, what Oregon has considered at some in the past. So I think we'll be waiting for that. We'll be waiting for the data from this level 3 analysis, and hopefully you two will come together with a policy that will make sense both for the bridge, and then the Washington Commission will have to consider the implications of that for the rest of our toll facilities and our ferry system as well.
Just one note, Ms. Griffith did mention this, but the Oregon Transportation Commission, when we were considering our own toll program, did provide direction to the Oregon Department of Transportation to create a tribal exemption for a specified universe of tribes that had a connection to the lands within Oregon. That was never put into rule, given the pause on tolling. And so that was the direction that we had received from the Oregon Transportation Commission in the last year.
Any questions or comments on the tribal engagement process? We'll hear updates as that proceeds. I think we probably do want to take a break before we get to our next big item of approving polling scenarios. So let's take a break and come back at 11:20.
I know, that's what I love. But they need to buy more. Yeah. I'll know that when you were, it's like, it must have been an early morning. You have your blinders. That's awesome.
That was the most succinct explanation of
You know, we took care of the Seahawks last night.
I know. Tell them that's actually. I talked
They were casting shade on other tracks. Did you say train transportation? I was listening. I spent my free ones, I said $3, I haven't had it once, right? I'm gonna get beer sometime.
The one thing I gotta say, if anything is.
I know.
I still said it.
Okay. I honestly didn't, I was trying to listen to it, but I would probably also like reading
Yeah, we'll see. Well, we still need. As I'm wearing.
Okay, welcome back. We're now getting to one of our meatier items on the agenda today. Not that everything else wasn't also significant and important, but we're going to hear from our hardworking bi-state tolling committee, the work that they've been doing on preparing tolling scenarios for us to approve in advance. And to get us started, I'm going to turn it over to Carl to kick this off.
Thank you, Chair Young. As Chair Young referenced, we're getting to the meat of the conversation here today with the discussions we've had meant to kind of lead us to this position where we can speak to the traffic and revenue toll scenarios, as well as then a discussion that we can have on what to advance. At this point, we wanted to start off with a little bit of background about the bi-state tolling subcommittee and some of the work that's been done to date. So Travis and I will speak to that, and then we'll pass to Brent Baker, our TNR expert for today, to walk through the scenarios himself and set up time for the discussion. But first, go to the next slide. To start us off on the background, where the toll, a slide on where the toll authorization came from. So the I-5 bridge is authorized for tolling by the state legislature of both Oregon and Washington. And I will speak here to the Washington piece. The Washington State Legislature authorized tolling for the I-5 bridge replacement project in 2023. And this authorizes tolling on both the existing I-5 bridge as well as the replacement bridge. It also directs that toll revenue must be spent on construction, maintenance, and operations of the facility, so inclusive of any bonds that are sold, of course. It also prohibits tolling on the Washington portion of I-205, as we know parallels I-5 in the Vancouver region to the east. For the Oregon piece, I was going to hand to Travis to speak to that authorization.
Yeah, so while the Oregon Transportation Commission does need to, under Oregon statute, authorize tolling on a specific segment of the interstate, our legislature in 2013 provided direction for the Columbia River Crossing project that is still operative today. Like Washington, tolls are to be used to fund the project and have to meet the requirements for debt issued and must pay for maintenance and operations of the project. There are also a couple other provisions that the tolls must consider traffic demand management. You will see in the scenarios we bring you that there are variable time of day toll rates that meet that requirement to help us manage demand. And there's a provision also that tolls have to be reduced after paying off construction debt. Does not say how much they have to be reduced by, just that they should be reduced at that point. Does not require that they be removed, however.
Thanks, Travis. So the bi-state subcommittee, some background on the subcommittee itself. First, the I-5 Bridge Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee was formed in January 2024 of this year, following the agreement between the Oregon and Washington Transportation Commissions to the I-5 Bridge Bi-State Tolling Agreement. This was an agreement directed by the legislatures to come together in order to support this bi-state tolling subcommittee. The subcommittee recommends toll rates and policies to each commissions for the rate setting, and as well as for periodic review once you have those tolls and policies in place. This will inform both the work for the rate setting as well as any additional research and analysis that could support both this rate setting process and an ongoing overview and review of the conditions for the bridge. Importantly, toll rates and policies that are put forward by the subcommittee and ultimately approved by the commission must comply with state law and applicable bond covenants once in place. Pictured here are the 4 members of the esteemed subcommittee, and this includes our vice chair for each committee, for each commission, Commissioner Restucci and Commissioner Byer, as co-chairs effectively of the subcommittee, as well as Commissioner Jennings from Washington State and Commissioner Chapman from Oregon. Next slide. So as part of the process to come forward with recommendations, the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee advanced a set of toll rate and policy considerations. These are meant to support the decision-making process for the subcommittee. They're not binding in a sense, but they are supportive of coming to a decision and are reflected in the recommendations that you will see today to the full commission. These considerations include safe and efficient mobility, which has been defined as improving corridor mobility and efficient operations. Equity, minimizing the effects on vulnerable populations and overburdened communities. Environmental quality, which is defined as contributing to the reduction of air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, economic vitality, supporting the efficient movement of goods and services across the bridge. These were not put in any particular order, but were put forward as considerations on an equal level for our commissioners to really decide on how to prioritize and to consider those as they make their decisions. Next slide. And finally, for where the subcommittee has, or what type of actions the subcommittee has taken since it was formed. Between March and April of this year, the subcommittee reviewed the level 2, the preliminary toll scenario analysis results and assumptions. Then moved forward between May and June of this year with considering and identifying preliminary level 3 scenario recommendations. So that's really taking that information from that level 2 work and moving down from, oh goodness, over 11, 13 different scenarios we had ultimately, and bring that down to 4 for your consideration. And finally, in July of this year, the subcommittee advanced level 3 toll scenario recommendations for approval that is in front of you today. As you're aware, there was each commission's been briefed on these scenarios for Washington Washington Commission in July and the Oregon Commission in August. So we'll have some familiarity, but certainly we'll encourage discussion here again today. So happy, if there's any questions on that work or where we stand with the subcommittee, happy to speak to that now.
Seeing no questions?
With that, I think we're ready to pass it to Brent to speak to our scenario development.
So would any of the subcommittee members like to make any comments at this point about the work or? Okay, sounds good. Take it away, Brent.
Great. Good morning, Chair Young, Chair Brown, and members of the 2 commissions. I'm Brent Baker, the Financial Structures Lead for the IBR program. And we're going to just dive in a little bit more on the level 3 work that we've been working on in parallel with the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee. So there were a couple of considerations that came into play in our work with you and the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee. And it really comes down to providing detailed traffic and revenue projections sufficient to support your work, which we see as informing toll rate setting by the 2 commissions independently and collectively. Leveraging at least $1.25 billion in capital funding for the program. And I will acknowledge, we'll talk about it more in a minute, but that one of the scenarios that the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee looked at is targeting a higher number, hitting the top end of the range in the 2023 financial plan for the IBR program of $1.6 billion. And essentially then to meet this traffic and revenue forecast, and the work that we're doing here is intended to meet all of the financial obligations over the forecast horizon. So in each and every year of that forecast horizon, you heard Travis and Carl talked earlier about the need to be able to pay for operations and maintenance costs. Well, those projections are considered over the entire forecast period, which for so far in this work is we're targeting at 2060. And eventually, this level 3 TNR study will be used, not, concurrent and following your rate setting actions, to obtain an investment grade credit rating for the debt that the program seeks to obtain from the financial markets. That will be occurring a bit later than after the start of pre-completion tolling that's been proposed for the existing bridge. This next slide shows some various rate and policy setting levers that have been part of our discussions in the level 3 TNR study and the bi-state tolling subcommittee work. Just briefly, toll rate variability by time of day and day of week is one, and that I think meets the objectives that Travis was discussing on having some demand management effects. Truck toll multipliers, how much trucks should pay. Toll escalation. Do tolls get adjusted regularly to keep pace with inflation and rising operating costs? A low income benefit program and the specifics of that being the discount rate and eligibility thresholds. And then finally, pre-completion tolling differences. Do we look at pre-completion tolling the same as we would on the new bridge once it's completed, or are there differences in the rates and or hours of the day that are being tolled? And these levers are kind of all examined by the work and with input from the bi-state committee. And they influence various outcomes and objectives. Operating performance objectives are, how well is the bridge performing in terms of traffic flows and attracting and travel and so forth. And then there are the revenue levels and the funding objectives. Are we meeting all of those financial obligations that would be required over the course of the forecast period? So on the next slide, we'll just talk briefly about some of the scenarios that we're looking at. These are the 4 scenarios that the bi-state tolling subcommittee has brought forward here today as their recommendation. And I think the first point to note is that all 4 of these include some form of toll escalation, and all 4 of them include a low-income toll program, though perhaps varying by when the program would be implemented. The first 3 are, targeted to reach that $1.25 billion toll funding contribution at $1.24 billion. And the 4th one is the one that is aiming a little bit higher, maybe toward that financial plan top of range of about $1.6 billion. Now, we don't know yet whether those values will be reached by these scenarios, but that's part of the ongoing analysis that we're testing. It's our best expectation that they would at this point in time. So scenario 1 I think is the one that's a little bit different than the others in one aspect, and that is the truck toll multipliers. So scenario 1 has higher truck toll multipliers. Trucks, when they pay a multiple of the auto toll, sort of actually bring a larger share of the revenue than their traffic would suggest. And this has tractor trailers paying 4 times the base 2-axle auto toll in this example. And so, but what it allows is for lower general base toll rates for 2-axle autos. So our pre-completion rates here range from $1.55 to $3.20, and our post-completion rates range from $1.55 to $3.65. These rates all in constant 2026 dollars, so before applying any recurring escalation. And this scenario does look at 2.15% toll escalation per year, which is sort of a conservative measure of the projection for annual general price inflation. It uses a weekend toll. All of these scenarios have weekend tolls. They do vary by whether it's sort of a variability of 2 steps or 3 steps. So sort of a, low, middle, higher, or a lower and higher. This one has 2, and finally, it assumes that the low-income discount program would be implemented when the new bridge opens. Scenarios 2 and 3 then apply a bit higher tolls. Scenario 3 has sort of the same toll rate structure, schedule, variability, both pre and post-completion, whereas scenario 2 does start with a little bit lower tolls pre-completion and then steps them up post-completion. But these two, as well as the fourth scenario, have lower truck toll multipliers. So we're taking some of the burden away from freight in these by going with more modest truck toll multipliers of 1.5 and 3 here for modeling purposes. But basically the top toll would be 3 times the auto toll, which is consistent with the other facilities currently in operations in Washington State that allow heavy trucks. That the top toll rate that the Washington State Transportation Commission has set there is 3 times that for 6 or more axles on a tractor trailer. The other difference between scenarios 2 and 3 is that the low-income toll program is assumed on scenario 3 to be implemented as soon as practical, whereas on scenario 2, it is assumed to open when the new bridge opens. And that is kind of reflecting the fact that the toll rates are stepping up on scenario 2 and that post-completion when the new bridge opens. And so that's when the proposed benefit for low-income users would jump in. And then finally, scenario 4 looks at a higher set of toll rates from $2 to $4.70 in pre-completion, same pattern in post-completion, but subject to the escalation. On this one, because we're starting with higher toll rates, the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee agreed to maybe have a lower escalation expectation. So instead of 2.15% each year, this one assumes 3% every other year, or kind of every biennium, if you will. And then pairs that with that 50% low-income discount to be implemented as soon as practical. So maybe I'll just pause there and see if there's any questions about the 4 scenarios and their differences that are based upon the work of the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee.
I have a question. Can you speak to how each of these scenarios weights the factors, for example, around equity? Obviously, if you're offering a discount out of the gate, that provides more equity early in the polling scenario versus as soon as practical, but also in terms of traffic management. I'm just curious. I mean, it feels like each of these is going to weight those things a little bit differently, and I would like to see that, I guess, so I can understand.
Certainly, Chair Young, Commissioner Pukai, let me take a stab at that. And I think maybe some of the other members of the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee may also want to weigh in on those conversations. You're right that there are differences and there are trade-offs to be made. I mean, we know that you know, it's a change to have tolling. And so some of those trade-offs are like, are we going to kind of ease people into it a little bit with lower tolls in the completion period and then step them up? Or do we, you know, take rip the Band-Aid off, I guess, at once and put on higher tolls, recognizing that that may allow us a little bit more financial capabilities in terms of the toll funding contribution, or get us a little closer to our targets. And then in doing so, the thinking was, well, if we were to start higher, which is what you see in scenarios 3 and 4, then we should try to work hard to get that low-income toll program implemented as soon as practical. Where I think there was some interest on maybe some of the other scenarios, and maybe that was a secondary thing that could be figured out at the time the new bridge opens. So, you know, there are things there. All of these, because they're variably priced and because they're changing from an existing toll-free condition, are going to have some demand management effects. The variable pricing will allow people that have the discretion to change their travel time, will encourage them or incentivize them to pick a lower cost time of day for travel, which will provide some peak period congestion relief for those that need to travel in the peak periods that are paying those higher tolls and maybe expect to have a better performing facility. So I think those are some of the other considerations that come into play here. You know, there's trade-offs in these things, and the thing that I think that the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee realized was they couldn't pick the lowest value for each of these variables because it just wasn't going to deliver the funding that was needed. But I should perhaps pause and see what the members of the committee might have to offer as well.
Sure. I mean, partially, I guess I should start by saying that Oregon has a fairly strong bias towards providing the assistance to people with lower means. But one of the realities we talked about is that's going to take a while to figure out how to do it, and that's why that's reflected in the rates there as well.
Not only that, in Washington, we do not have a low income toll kind of thing. So whatever we do here, we're gonna have to do there, and we need to make sure we do it right the first time. So that's why they're trying to delay it a little bit to do the homework.
And although we have these numbers here with us, until we have the investment grade study, we really won't know what those numbers look like. And so that's why the committee did what they did, was recommend these 4 scenarios.
That's one of the things I would add to that is that the 4 scenarios is probably 1 more, 2 more than you would usually have. But we figured, you know, at least from our perspective on our side of the river, that we wanted to have the data going in, so we added a few more permutations so that when the commissions have to make a decision, we'll have real data to make a decision on.
This will help as a former scenario planner. Appreciate the additional insight. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions?
Just real quick, the 2.15 annually, that takes effect after the bridge opens, not prior. Is that correct?
Not quite, Commissioner Jennings. I think the thinking is here on this is that would begin at least a full year after tolling starts. So if we're currently looking in spring of 26 for a tolling start date, you know, the fiscal year would kind of kick up there at July 1st, a couple of months later. So we wait 1 full year, and the modeling work, from a modeling assumption, the modeling is going to assume that tolls would then kick in and say fiscal year 28 on July 1st, 27 was when we'd see that first 2.15% increment. That's what we're modeling based upon how we understood the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee's direction, but certainly the two commissions have the discretion to do that differently.
So if we, just theoretically, hypothetically, if we were to pick down the road, scenario 2, pre-completion, $1.55 minimum, $3.65 maximum, as of time of day and all that kind of stuff. The 2.15% difference between pre-completion and post-completion is 10 cents. So what you're saying is, I'm just making sure, pre-completion a year later, we're gonna knock on 2.15 of 1.55 cents. And every year thereafter, until post-completion, we're only making $1 minimum, or excuse me, 10 cents.
So let me try to reframe this a little bit in response to your question, Commissioner Jennings, because I think what we've tried to do to keep it simple is in that chart in the presentation is we're showing on those scenarios, we're showing what the rates are in sort of year of opening or 2026 dollars. But the so they do not, when it says it's a post-completion rate, it is not factoring in the 7 years of 2.15% escalation that would be added on that, so that in 2033, when the new bridge opens, the rates would be higher. So I can provide that information.
I would personally like to see.
Yeah, as to what would the escalated toll rates would be.
Does every year.
Yes.
And when it's due to open, what the actual amounts would be then.
Sure, so and so the difference in the scenario 2, I think, was the one you were looking at, correct?
Pick one.
Okay, so the rates actually are a step higher in post-completion in that case, but in scenario 3, the rate schedule is the same except for the 2.15% added. So, for example, in scenario 3, where the rate is 165 is the minimum rate. By the time we get to post-completion, that would be $1.95 with the escalation.
And post-completion is 2033?
Fiscal 2034, we're thinking like July 1st, 2033 is how we're modeling it.
When we go forward, can we see that?
Absolutely. We have, and we are probably trying to keep it simple, but we have all the numbers and we can certainly.
I just know I'm gonna hear Really? You're only gonna make 10 cents in 7 years or what?
That 10 cents that you see in that example is the increment between what the schedule is that jumps up.
Yeah.
And it's that amount plus the escalation.
Granted. But that's not how people are gonna see it.
Understood, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Can you remind us all what portion of the total bridge cost would be covered by tolling?
Well,
Dollars.
I will turn to my colleague Frank for what the approximate cost of the
realize
Columbia
you're
River Bridge and approaches is.
Estimating at this point, okay.
But as just to remind us what our target is for toll funding is we're trying to provide $1.25 billion in capital funding in the first three scenarios, and we're testing the capability to go higher in the fourth scenario.
So thank you, Brent. The current, program cost that we have the finance plan for that we developed is somewhere between 5 and 7.5 billion was the range that we had when we ran the risk-based estimate. We've been targeting 6 billion as the most likely from that finance work. So as Brent said, with this being 1.25 billion, that's the whole program. So that's the whole 5 miles worth of improvements. That's the 7 interchanges with investments. That's 2 miles extension of light rail to bridge. So, I think the tolls may not go directly only to the bridge over the river. There's approaches that have to get built to the bridge as well. We have 2 federal grants that we've already been awarded. There's the mega grant that the program received 600 million for, as well as the Bridge Investment Program grant that we received 1.5 billion for. And so, some combination of those federal grants, the tolls, and then the $1 billion that each state had provided at the legislative level will be used for, the bridge, the approaches, and then as you see the other investments we're making. We will be, as I had said, some of the next steps really is to get through the SDEIS, to look at some of the options that are in the SDEIS. So there are some design options that have varying, cost to them. So there's a stacked bridge, or there's a, kind of a single level side-by-side bridge. As we get these comments, we'll work with our partners to start making some of those kind of project decisions, and that'll allow us to have a better updated estimate. We're planning on updating our estimate probably summer of next year. That'll be a good time frame for us to also then, as we're getting to that final SEIS and the ROD, have a good cost estimate that we can then plan the construction programs and projects and contracts for. So right now, the target's in the 6 billion range, and tolls roughly are a little bit more than a sixth of the total revenue that we're looking for to finance the program.
Mr. Baker.
Thank you. I've got a question, and then are they open to taking input and comments at this point? Okay. The question, thanks to the committee. There's some really good work that's been done here. Has there been any sensitivity to the impact of diversion on the 205 and 84 based on the toll rates that we're thinking on the IBR?
Yes, Chair Young, Commissioner Baker, that's a very fair question, and there has been a number of analyses. So first of all, I would just mention that as part of the environmental process, the IBR program has prepared a transportation technical report that looks at the effects of tolls and the expected shifts in travel patterns in the region. This is also something that's looked at a high level in the level 3 toll traffic and revenue study. I would point out that there are some differences between the environmental transportation work that is done, which is really focused on the weekday performance, and the traffic and revenue studies, which are more focused on kind of annual revenues and trying to provide a revenue stream where we would prefer to under promise and over deliver. So there are essentially, we aim for lower traffic projections than what we might truly expect for revenue forecasting purposes, which might suggest that there's, a little bit different shift to I-205 than what would be documented in the environmental work. And that is just purely for purposes of being fiscally conservative in our financial projections. So there will be information in the level 3 TNR study that comes out that talks about that. There is already existing information in the transportation technical report that's part of the draft SEIS that's up for comment right now. So, and if there are specific questions, we can take those to the team and see if they can be answered as well.
Okay, one part of that question had to do with the money. The other part had to do with what happens to the Portland streets if we get a significant amount of traffic that spills over to 205 and then tries to use 84 and diverts itself onto Portland city streets and what the nature of that might produce. So I was just curious about, is there a model that takes a look at that impact? The other was a comment, and I'm a pretty simple guy, so I understand why there's a rush hour. People are going to work and they're coming home from work. And for the magnitude that we're talking here, somebody that lives in Washington, it's commuting to Oregon or the other way around to work, they're going to be spending between $1,000 and $1,500 a year on tolls. It's a lot of money. And particularly, my sense, the lower income, lower wage jobs have got less flexibility in telling their boss, I really don't want to be to work at 7:30. I'd really like to be here at 6:30, or I'd like to be here at 9:30. So my sense is I've got a real sensitivity to this as it relates to our lower income citizens. And as they absorb this burden, the faster we can get the discounts in place, I think it's best served our citizens. So that would be my comment.
Did you want to respond?
Yeah, thank you for the, I just wanted to add, I think the question about the model, the work that we did in the draft supplemental EIS does take into account, the full system, transportation system here, and does look at what the effects of tolls would be. And it shows that some people may choose not to make some of the trips if they don't, they don't need to. It does show some trips choosing to take 205. 205 and 84 are already congested. And so it's people choosing to potentially use those. For freight in the kind of the off daytime peak, we do see some freight that might be going completely through the region, choosing to use 205. But that's all documented in our draft SEIS, and it's the model that we've used for, some of the work. And as Brent said, it's the same model we'll be using as we do these level 3. So that is some information that we can share more detail if you're interested. Great, thank you. Yeah.
Just a comment, Brent kind of covered this, and the Washington Commission's familiar with this because you've done this a lot. But for the Oregon Commission, one of the things that we talk about in the committee, and I think it's a point of confusion that I'm not sure how you avoided in the public. There are 2 traffic numbers that are out there. One is the traffic number projection for building the bridge, which is a higher number. And the other one is one that we're using here, which will be a lower number because you want to be conservative on estimating how many people are going to pay the toll. So they're both out there, and we've heard that repeatedly in the public comments, sort of which is it? It's both. It's both. Well, at some point, there's only going to be a certain number of cars going across the bridge.
But at this moment, it's both.
Yeah.
We need to be financially.
Right.
Commissioner Barker.
Yeah, my question is a little simple. You have said that there will be a $6 billion construction for this whole program, which includes not only the bridge, but all the ramps, on-ramp, off-ramp, all the facilities. What portion of is this the $6 billion will encompass everything, the whole program? And if there's a shortfall, what thing will be left out that may not get built? Have you considered those things that may have an impact on the overall traffic management of the program?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Commissioner Bratcher, with the question. That is part of the work that I said we're really going to be looking forward to getting some of those decisions, updating the estimate. In order to move forward building this program, we've already identified that there's up to potentially 28 construction contracts. There isn't one construction contract, so we're gonna have to build it. And so identifying the sequence of how those contracts will be built will help to inform, once we've updated that estimate, if and when we might need different, funding or how the funding does fit. Right now, the program is looking to do everything we can to stay within the budget that we've targeted with that $6 million, recognizing, that construction costs have been fluctuating in the past few years. And so that's really, gonna be a part of the effort next summer as we're identifying the cost estimates and the sequencing for the program and really updating the finance plan that will include the tolls and the other funding sources that we're still targeting or have already been committing to us.
One of the reason I asked this question is we are facing this difficulty on I-405 segment of the freeway in Seattle area where the through traffic is funded, but the interchanges are not funded. And it's been taking years, maybe a decade to take care of those things. So the public is paying a lot of tolls by moving freely on the freeway, but they can't get on the freeway because they're sitting on the interstate, those on-ramp and off-ramps. So I just wanted to make sure that we don't face the same difficulty in IVR, where people will have a difficult time getting on and getting off the system, and it may take another decade to complete some of those features. And that should be considered upfront in terms of the overall cost. If 6 billion is not enough, let that be 8 billion before you break the ground, so that you have the funds to complete the entire program, as opposed to doing in pieces, which the cost goes high and the public get upset about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jennings.
So, unlike Commissioner Baker there, I'm just a simple person. So what's the ask today? Is our job here today just to recommend the level 3 TNR study tolling scenarios to move forward, to be evaluated and then report back to us? We're not actually picking anything at this point. Is that correct? Correct. Then I'll wait for the chair to ask for a motion.
Okay. Go ahead.
Chair Young, if it pleases the commissions, there's one more slide I was gonna just briefly cover, so maybe. I just wanted to, if we could advance to the next slide. Thank you. So there are just a couple of additional considerations. When we're talking about the amount of funding that toll contributes, we have to look at the net revenues after we've paid for our cost of collection and our operating and maintenance costs for the bridges and so forth. And there are a couple of things that we're going to sharpen our pencils on for this level 3 investment grade traffic and revenue work net revenue projections that we just want to briefly highlight here. And those include the revenue generated from and the cost of administering a civil penalty adjudication program, which is, primarily dealing with users that are paying by mail that don't have an electronic account and do not remit their payment when they get mailed an invoice. We'll also be looking at what is it cost to administer a low-income toll program, and similarly, if tribal exemptions become part of the thinking, then what does it cost to administer those? We'll also be refining assumptions and costs for customer service centers and whether those are going to be permanent or temporary. But basically, we're going to have to get accounts set up and a bunch of transponders out to a large group of people in a relatively short period of time, and there will be some costs to that, and then perhaps some ongoing maintenance costs to serve those. And then lastly, we're going to be looking at bridge insurance premiums, which may be a requirement, likely be a requirement of the lenders, the bondholders in this case, to protect the asset and protect the revenue stream should something happen while then repairs or rebuilding is being done. So those are part of that analysis, and I think we've heard about the tribal discount or exemption issues already. So that was just the last that I wanted to share of this part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So any further discussion or questions?
Madam Chair, as co-chair of the I-5 Bridge Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee, I move the Washington State Transportation Commission advance the 4 I-5 Bridge traffic and revenue toll scenarios recommended by the I-5 Bridge Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee for level 3 analysis. I further move that the commission direct the subcommittee to conduct analysis of the potential of providing tribal toll exemptions or discounts in the future, and report back to the full commission once completed.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion and it's been seconded from the Washington Transportation Commission.
You want to do them together? Okay. Madam Chair, as co-chair of the I-5 Bridge Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee, I move the Oregon Transportation Commission advance the 4 I-5 Bridge traffic and revenue toll scenarios recommended by the I-5 Bridge Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee for level 3 analysis. I further move that the commission direct the subcommittee to conduct analysis or the potential for providing tribal toll exemptions or discounts in the future and report back to the full commission's once completed.
Second. So we have a motion from both the Washington and the Oregon commissions to advance the toll scenarios as they've been presented to us and to direct that we advance a tribal exemption study, financial study, and all of those things come back to us for decision later. So we're going to take a roll call vote on this. And would you like to go first, Chair Brown?
Sure. Vice Chair Byer,
Both sides?
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman, and Chair votes aye.
And for the Washington Commission, Carl, would you like to call the roll?
Sure, I'll just go around the table. Commissioner Withy,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Jennings? Aye. Commissioner Takai?
Aye.
Commissioner Batra?
Aye.
Commissioner Grant?
Aye.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Aye.
And finally, Commissioner Young.
Chair votes aye. And we have unanimous, motion carries. Thank you very much to the committee, especially for all of that work. That was a heavy lift to get those scenarios identified, especially when you started with 11. So, yeah. We look forward to hearing the results. And we're going to, and also thank you for all of the work that was done to prepare that analysis. We're going to conclude the meeting today with an update on the road ahead and what we can look forward to. And Carl is going to start us off there. Sure.
So let's move to the next slide. We have an overview of the project schedule, and much of this has been touched on, but just to put it together on one slide for you to see. Of course, today you're advancing the level 3 TNR scenario options that's identified there with a gray diamond under October in fiscal year 25. So thank you for your work to advance that today. That analysis will be underway into about March of next year, let's say spring of next year, during which time there will be a set of recommendations. The subcommittee will be then reviewing the analysis as well as the additional tribal analysis and any other analysis that might be part of that to be put forward to the full commissions, again, to be able to bring forward which options to advance for public input, whether that's, for example, 2 options that you may want to go to further public input before advancing forward with a single option that you would approve some point in the summer of 2025. During that time, we'll be undergoing ongoing public engagement at different points in time, as well as the tribal consultation that we addressed earlier today as well. So it's really the summary. It really brings together what we have been speaking to today. I'm happy to address any questions there on the schedule.
Any questions on the road ahead? Okay.
I'll note our next Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee, the subcommittees decided the next one will be on November 15th, which will be a virtual meeting. So we'll look forward to that meeting of the Bi-State Subcommittee for consideration of our next step.
So we're not having another in-person meeting with all of us until July-ish, correct?
We haven't decided on what that would be. Certainly, if if you want to meet together to approve scenarios for public input in about April or next spring, you could do that. You could do that without being in person. That's a decision that hasn't been made this month.
I was just wondering on the aspect of I term out in June of 25. I just wanted to say to everybody, thank you.
You're the way the
I
final
just wanted to
decision.
know if I was meeting you guys again.
And let it be known then for Washington commissioners, we're gonna need a replacement.
We have one already.
Okay, well, you do.
I have an alternate.
All right, well, in that case, I think I'll give the podium to Chair Brown for any concluding remarks.
Well, I noticed that we have a straight line going, so that means there's no bumps in front of us. That's smooth sailing as we go through this process. But again, I want to thank everyone because I think that just shows collectively that we are all very, very concerned about this, that we're really taking our time to go through the process. You have a lot of work ahead of you to convince us what is going to be the best scenario. I think that for all of us, we're concerned. And we have to weigh everything, and I think it weighs heavy on all of us. As Commissioner Baker said, you know, we're talking about Washingtonians and Oregonians who are going to be impacted by whatever we do. If we do nothing, they're going to be impacted even further. And so, you know, there isn't an easy solution here. So as we work towards this, I think that you know, I want the public to know that we really are really being considerate in our thought process on this. That's most of my comments.
Okay. Any Washington commissioners like to make any concluding comments?
I would just like to thank the tolling subcommittee and the work that they've been doing, and it's been great working with our counterpart, Commissioner Vice Chair Byer. Obviously Roy has served as chair for this organization and has been on this commission for a very long time, so it's great to have him there. And then Commissioner Chapman, thank you so much for meeting with the utilities. You know, my meeting with the Cowits, it's nice to be able to communicate and hear that they were kind of the same thing that was going on both sides, so I appreciate that as well. So, and then to thank the full commissions for being able to come together. I know it's difficult for us to be able to do that, but I think it's great. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to the work that needs to be done. Obviously, this bridge is something that needs to happen.
I didn't call upon my counterparts. That was kind of rude of me. I didn't know if anybody else, I knew that Vice Chair did have some comments that he wanted.
What does that say?
I can tell when you squirm next to me.
No, it's been a pleasure to work with Jim and Roy on this, and your staff. Been a great working relationship, and we've learned a lot, Alicia and I, from the Washington commissions, because you've done this before, and we haven't. You know, it's a good project. I wish we had done it in 2013, the first time we approved it. But, you know, that's water. I guess that's water under the bridge. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see the information so that we can make some decisions about that. I hope that in the interim, staff is able to make some progress on both the tribal discussions as well as on the low income piece, so we can have that as we make some decisions going forward. It's been an interesting project. Certainly, it's just one of the most important links between our two states, you know, and our two economies.
Well, hearing no other comments, then I'm gonna take the floor to just wrap it up and say we've been grappling with tolling in Washington for quite a while. And we know that it's a push-pull. You never like to raise tolls on citizens, but there are also factors that cause us to need to have them in place. But this is a significant change in the kind of tolling that we've been doing, because it really affects both of our states, and it's an interstate highway. So this is a big move, and we take it seriously. We're not going to take this lightly. And we appreciate having the relationship that we do with Oregon so that we can move through this process together and make the best decision we can to get this project done. So thank you all for your time for showing up today. And as a reward, we have lunches for you. Don't forget, there are box lunches for both commissioners and staff that you can pick up on your way out. But thank you for coming, and we'll look forward to seeing you again whenever that is. Thank you. And with that, the meeting's adjourned.